Everybody have a syllabus? All good? Okay. That away. Everybody in the right room? Everybody looking for chemistry? Chem 1061? Okay, good. I always feel a little silly asking that, but it was a while ago now. There was somebody that didn't figure out they were in the wrong class until like 3 weeks into it, and I think they thought it was supposed to be a biology class, but got a little suspicious once we never actually mentioned living things in the first 3 weeks. So, okay. So, always good to ask. So, let me tell you a couple of very important things just to begin with. The most important thing is me, of course. No, not the most important thing. My name is Andrew Aspas. I go almost entirely by Andy. Okay, so as long as you're comfortable calling me Andy, that's what I'm used to being called. Some people can't quite get over the calling a professor by their first name thing, so you can call me Mr. Aspas or Professor Aspas. I have an unusual Norwegian last name with double vowels and A's and S's, and it gets a little dicey, but Aspas is how it's pronounced, and double check the spelling if you're sending me an email, andrew.aspas@anokaramsey.edu. So, let me bring up a web browser here. It's Anoka Ramsey's 50th anniversary this year, in case you didn't notice. I'm going to, so if you hover over Student Home, click on D2L Brightspace. You sign in this with your star ID and your password, which you should have by now. Here, I need to minimize that. There we go. So, if you have issues with your star ID or anything, you can do the password reset or stuff like that. You use your star ID to log in to D2L Brightspace. That's the online course management system. You use that same star ID and password to log in to computers here on campus. So there's an open computer lab just right down the hallway there. We will be using the laptops in the lab every single lab period pretty much, and you'll use that same login. Okay? So if you haven't figured that out, if you haven't figured out your star ID and password, you're going to need to figure it out soon enough. You use that same login and password if you have your own laptop and you're using Wi-Fi. You have to sign in with that. The Anoka Ramsey email, you have your own email address through myanokaramsey.edu, but the password is the same password that you use for your star ID. Okay? So that's pretty much what you need to know to get logged in around here. You will find our course here. You may have to expand the current semester, but I should say 1061. I will update this news portion, so don't collapse. That's good. It doesn't let you collapse it or here it might let you exit out or something, but don't do that. Leave the news visible. I update that after every class with the types of things that are active and things you need to be looking forward to. So that's always the first place you look for stuff. So always keep that active. Let me go to US Student. The other important place will always be over here in Content. A couple of very important places for you to visit here. We're going to talk about mastering chemistry here in a few minutes. That's where your online homework assignments will be. That is a link to it. Your lab experiments for Chem 1061. There is not a separate lab packet or textbook that you buy. All the lab experiments are right here. So that was in materials, content. It's in the links part, or if you just do table of contents, it's right there. But there's Chem 1061 lab experiments. Okay, move that over so you can see it. Right here, these are all the write-ups for all the experiments. So we'll talk about that when we're in lab, but I just wanted to show you where that link is. But right now, if I go to handouts, let me open our syllabus right here. If you lose track of your syllabus, you can download it and print it out as many times as you like right there from inside of content. One other thing you will find useful, this little button right here with 2 squares and an arrow in it takes your content from within this frame to sort of its own window, which is very helpful when you're viewing handouts and stuff like that. There's also a button for downloading handouts that you can take advantage of if you want to keep something on your computer. Okay, so, all right, so here's our syllabus. What am I going to talk about? Prerequisites are important. This math course is not called 210 anymore, but if you successfully registered, you've met the math prerequisite. They actually enforce that now. But in essence, we're expecting you to have at least completed an intermediate algebra type course. Okay? And your AccuPlacer, if most of you have taken the AccuPlacer, your AccuPlacer will have properly placed you into this course if that's successful. Some of you may have already taken college algebra, or some of you may be taking college algebra now or soon. College algebra certainly won't hurt, but at least in 1061. The math we do in here is pretty limited to just solving pretty simple equations for a variable. Okay? You need to know how to solve for an x that's on the bottom of a fraction, for instance, or divide from both sides and subtract from both sides to isolate x. Okay? If you've met that prerequisite, you should be able to do that without much problem. But if it's been a while since you've taken a math course, or if you think you're a little rusty in math, or have any concerns about your math at all, you may want to come and visit me during my office hours, and I may be able to direct you to some additional resources that you can use. There's a workbook and things like that you can use to practice some of the math on your own. Unfortunately, we don't really have time in here to go through all of the exact math skills that you need. That's what prerequisites are for. We expect that you have a certain level of understanding, but the prerequisites are not perfect, so some people have no problem with it, some people will have issues with the math. And it's a real shame to have issues with the math in a chemistry course, because you could be doing fine with the chemistry, but it's the math that puts you behind. So what I really want to do is anybody that has any concerns about the math, come and talk to me, work with me real closely right away so that we get ahead of it and we can get it figured out for you. We don't want that to become a problem later on after it's too late, in other words. Okay. We also have an expectation of some chemistry. Okay, that's the other prerequisite, either a college chemistry class or a high school chemistry class or something like that. Okay? We do pretty much go from the beginning, but our first probably 3 chapters whiz by really, really fast. And people with no chemistry or very limited chemistry experience struggle a bit in the very beginning, because we're going to go fast on the things that should be reviewing from a previous chemistry experience that you've had. So if that's a concern for you, okay, if somehow you've gotten in here with no chemistry at all, or chemistry was a long time ago or something like that, also come and talk to me and we'll decide what will be best to work through that. Okay? And all this about coming talking to me, here are my office hours. Today is Monday, so I have an office hour before lecture on Monday, and I have an office hour after lecture on Wednesday. Okay? For us, I've got office hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays too, so they're listed there. My office is E224. It's right across the hall from the lab. Okay? Down over there, the lab is E221. So once you find where the lab is, my office is on sort of the far hallway, kind of past the lab, right back in there. So, so does anybody have questions about that sort of basic, really, really key important stuff? But I also have given you 2 links here, right in the syllabus for getting to. Well, it's called Brightspace. now. I'm having trouble calling it Brightspace because it's been called D2L for 15 years before that, but I think technically it's called D2L Brightspace. So we'll use those terms interchangeably. Okay? If you hear me talking about D2L, if I slip that in, or if we're talking about Brightspace, that's the same place. That's what we logged into to get to this on here. Okay? And I gave you those 2 links to D2L because there are some times when the college's website is down, but D2L might still be functioning, or the state things might be down, but the college's site might still be functioning. So I give you those 2 links because those are 2 sort of separate ways to get to it. Okay. So, alrighty, and we'll talk about mastering chemistry and stuff going on. So, anybody have questions so far? We good? Well, what we are going to do is, let's see here. I see several of you have this already. This came from the bookstore. If you have this already, get that out, rip that open. If you don't have this yet, that's okay for today. Make sure you get it by next time, by Wednesday, because we're going to be jumping right in and tackling this. This is just a packet of notes that you will be filling in during class. Okay, so bring these every single time, because you'll be filling these in right along with me up on the board, and that's what we'll be doing in here. Equations, okay, on the front page. These are the equations that will be given, at least the appropriate ones will be given on exams. Okay, so if it's on here, it does not need to be memorized. If it's on here, it will be given for you. So quick reference and a periodic table, and then other stuff that we're going to need. English metric conversions, solubility stuff we'll be dealing with as we go along. These things I have mentioned to you briefly already. D2L. We'll talk about discussion here in a second, I think. Your MyARCC email. There's a link on the ARCC webpage that just pretty much tells you what your email address is, because you need that in order to log in, but then you use that same password as your star ID. So please check that regularly. I think buried somewhere in the settings of that, you can forward it to a different email address that you use if you like, but please do check that regularly. If there's a schedule change or some kind of important thing like that, I like to send those out in email. I post them in D2L in the announcements part as well, but check that regularly. Talk about mastering chemistry, we'll talk about materials and so on. So what I'm going to do, let's see here, how many? 6. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, well, this will work out just great.